everyone. Welcome to Taking a Fresh Look at Summer Meals, hosted by the Food Research and Action Center. I'm Steve Hayward, Communications Manager at FRAC. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few brief housekeeping items. We expect this webinar to run about 60 minutes. We are recording the presentation and will send the recording and slides in a follow-up email. Closed captioning is available. To turn captions on, select Show Captions in the bottom taskbar and choose English as the spoken language. At the end of the presentation, there will be time for questions and answers. To ask a question at any time during the webinar, please use the Q&A tab in the bottom taskbar. With that, I'll pass it off to Clarissa Hayes, Deputy Director of School and Out-of-School Time Programs at FRAC.
Great. Thank you, Steve. And hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on taking a fresh look at summer meals. Like Steve mentioned, my name is Clarissa Hayes, and I will be moderating today's webinar on behalf of FRAC. And I just want to say that we are so excited to be kicking off the summer meals season with today's webinar and are so glad that you could all join us today. I know it's always strange to be talking about summer in like January and February, but now really is the best time to start pulling together plans for either starting or expanding summer meal programs in your community. So we are very excited about today's conversation. We do have an amazing panel of speakers joining us today that I am thrilled to hear from. But as always, we just hope you take away today some inspiration and ideas for expanding access to summer meals in your community. So let's go ahead and get started. On the next slide here, we have a brief look at what we'll be discussing today during our time together. So I will start with a very brief refresher on the summer nutrition programs. I know many of you here on the line are probably experts at it, but with all the changes and all the new opportunities, we do want to talk about the history, the benefits of the program, some of the program basics, and then some of the key opportunities that FRAC has identified on the national level to expand access to summer meals. And then I know the part that everyone is always really excited about. I'm going to turn it over to our guest speakers who have all operated the summer nutrition programs, and they are going to share some insight on what their programs have looked like in their community. So first, we're going to hear from Maribel Tandazzo, the Senior Director of Community Impact at the Greater Valley YMCA. Next, we'll hear from Valerie Burciaga, the Nutrition Grant Manager with the Boys and Girls Clubs in Texas. And then last but not least, we'll hear from Beth Brewster, who is the Supervisor of Food Services, and this should actually say Caroline County Public Schools, not the school district. You can tell that I was putting these together very late last night. So she is with the Caroline County Public Schools District here in Maryland. We're excited to hear from all three of these ladies. And like Steve mentioned, if you do have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature on your Zoom screen, and we will have plenty of time at the end to go through those. All right. So as always, we just wanted to set a little bit of the scene for what happens during the summer months. And I know there's a lot of text on this slide, and we're not going to go through all of it. But really what we wanted to stress is that summer can be one of the most vulnerable and hungriest time for children in every state. We all know that children who rely on free or reduced price school breakfast and school lunch during the school year lose access to those critical meals during the summer months. We also know that through research, rates of food insecurity and food insufficiency among children are higher in the summer months. And we also see accelerated weight gain, increase in BMI, and more obesity during the summer months. On top of that, we also know on the educational side that summer learning loss happens to all children, but we know that research shows that it does highly impact low-income students and students in later grades more. So on a whole, we know that things can be tough during the summertime, and the summer nutrition programs can really play a critical role in addressing some of these things here on this slide. And I will just say, if you are into research and want to dive into this a little bit more, we have a great resource that really details all of these findings, and we will make sure that it's included in the follow-up after today's webinar. All right. So the last slide of some level setting is just why are we here? Why are we talking about summer meals? Why are you spending an hour of your time with us? I think we all know how important it is to expand access to nutrition during the summertime. We know that during the school year, kids have access to those meals that keep them nourished, engaged, and healthy, and we want to make sure that that does not end when summer vacation starts. So there are many benefits to the summer nutrition programs. They combat hunger and food insecurity by providing free meals to children 18 and under at low-income sites. They can also provide a critical support to schools and meal sponsors and summer programs by providing that really key reimbursement for those meals that are served during the summer months. The other way to look at this is, for example, summer programs who may be serving their meals out of pocket. They can use this program to help them reallocate those funds to other things like staffing and programming and all of those good things. The other thing I will call out and that we'll hear throughout the webinar is that these programs are not a one-size-fits-all. They can definitely adapt to meet the need, including timing, where meals are served, what menus look like, what partners you're working with. They really can work for you. And then last but not least, we talked on the earlier slide about what we know happens during the summer month as far as summer slide and just low socialization for a lot of students. So many summer sites provide enrichment or programming that keeps children safe and engaged during the summer months, and that can really help to counteract that learning loss that we just talked through on the previous slide. All right, next slide. So I just wanted to take a quick minute to look back at the history of summer meals, because I know I was really surprised to hear how long it's been around and just how far we've come. So really quickly, just want to go through a brief look back at some of the things that have happened within the summer nutrition programs. So a version of this program was made available in 1968, and it was really a pilot program that was extended through the National School Lunch Program. And the Summer Food Service Program, as we know it, or the basic foundation of it, was created in 1975, which does mean that summer food will be having its 50th anniversary in 2025, which is very exciting. Another key point I wanted to call out is that FRAC issued its first Summer Doesn't Take a Vacation report, which looks at state and national participation in the programs in 1993, and we have been publishing that ever since, and we'll talk a little bit more about the data and what we've seen with that recently. And then, throughout the years, obviously adjustments have been made to the programs in the subsequent years, but 2009 really brought a bigger change to the programs, and that is when Congress funded demonstration projects, which really allowed specific communities to look at both non-congregate and summer EBT in pilots. And I'll just specifically call out the success of summer EBT allowed for future demonstrations and pilots of summer EBT that kept going until the pandemic. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So obviously in 2020, we know that the pandemic disrupted normal operations in all communities. It caused schools and providers to switch to summer food earlier. March 2020, a lot of them switched over, and that was the program that was in operation for many years, along with Seamless Summer. And there were many nationwide waivers, which made it possible to serve summer meals during the public health crisis. So that brings us up to 2022, when the end of the year omnibus legislation in 2022 made permanent summer EBT and non-congregate in rural areas. And we'll talk a little bit more about that further on in the webinar. So obviously a lot has happened in these programs since their inception, but there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that more children are reached during the summer months. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, which is looking at data. All right, so like I mentioned, FRAC every year releases a report that looks at participation in the summer nutrition programs. And really what we do is we look at summer participation in July, and we compare it to school lunch participation, because really every child who's eligible for a free or reduced price meal should be getting a meal during the summer months. Our last report was issued in July 2023, and it looked at participation the previous summer, July 2022, and here are some of the key findings that we found. So on an average day in July 2022, about 3 million children received a lunch, and we know that comparing to school lunch, we have about 11 children were receiving a summer lunch compared to every 100 that were receiving a school year lunch. So obviously these programs are there and they're working, but we want to make sure that more kids who are getting a school lunch are also getting a summer lunch. One other key point that I wanted to flag is that participation in summer lunch Although it did have a drop from the previous year, it actually was higher than pre-pandemic levels. So over 200,000 additional children were receiving a summer lunch in 2022 compared to 2019. So that report is available on our website if you'd like to see where your state is compared to other states or the national average. You can find that on our website, frac.org. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we'll get through this pretty quickly so we can hear from our amazing guest speakers, but I just wanted to give a few top-level key facts about these programs. So when we talk about the summer nutrition programs, that includes two program options, the Summer Food Service Program and the Seamless Summer Option. And most of today we'll be talking about the Summer Food Service Program because that is a little bit more widely used and it's open to more sponsors and providers. So through these programs, as far as meal options go, sites can serve breakfast, lunch, or snack in certain combinations. And at most sites, that's up to 2 meals per day. So for eligibility, most sites are deemed eligible through area eligibility, which means that sites are located in an attendance area of a school where 50% of the children are eligible for free or reduced price school meals through school or census data. And then for closed sites, closed enrolled sites, or campsites, you can individually qualify children in order to participate in this program. And then like all federal nutrition programs, sites do need to follow a USDA meal pattern, which we'll also talk about briefly later on. All right, next slide. So like I discussed in the previous slide, there are two programs that work to provide meals during the summer months, the Summer Food Service Program and the Seamless Summer Option. Really quickly, just want to cover the differences here so we're all on the same page, and then we can move on from there. So for the Seamless Summer Option, this is only available to school food authorities. It's basically an extension of the National School Lunch Program. A little bit less paperwork for schools who are already very familiar with doing NSLP, but on the flip side, the reimbursement is a little bit lower than summer food and meal pattern, the normal school lunch and school breakfast rules and meal patterns apply. So many schools do choose to do the Summer Food Service Program, which I'll briefly touch on now. So this program is open to school food authorities and nonprofit organizations. There is a higher per meal reimbursement through this program, and then it does have a more simplified meal pattern when compared to SSO. So I know many schools appreciate SSO, that's still very viable and out there, but I think for the most part, a lot of partners and schools are using Summer Food Service Program, and again, that will be the majority of what we're talking about here today. Next slide. All right, so again, quickly to get through these slides. If you are new to this program and you're not really sure where you can fit in, there are some key players within this program, and you can see here on the right of the screen how this program is structured. So at the top, USDA funds the program, and every state, there's a state agency that administers the program, and what that means is they sign agreements with sponsors, they train and monitor sponsors, and they are the ones who are making sure that those reimbursements for the meals are being disseminated. From there, sponsors are really the big player here, and they have the lovely star next to them, but they are expected to attend the state agency's training. They're going to be the ones locating those eligible sites, training and supervising staff, and then they're also the ones who are going to be arranging for meals to be prepared or delivered, monitoring those sites, and then also getting that reimbursement for every meal served. And then below that are the sites, and these are the physical locations where meals are either being eaten or served. And sites, really, they are there to supervise the children, make sure meals are being served properly, and in many cases, providing activities and enrichment for children. So I would just say this is a very simplified look at how these programs operate. Your state child nutrition agency will be able to share more information about their training, answer any questions you have, and help you get started. All right, so moving on. Like all federal nutrition programs, these programs have to follow USDA guidelines for the meal pattern, and meals must meet these in order to be reimbursed. That's a really important thing to remember. And again, this is a pretty simplified look at the meal pattern. And this is just for summer food service program, since schools doing SSO generally follow the school meals meal pattern. But just really quickly, this diagram here is pretty straightforward, but if you are serving breakfast, you must serve all three components listed here on the left, which includes milk, a fruit or vegetable, and a grain bread item. For lunch/supper, you have to serve all four components, which really, if you look at this, means 5 items, because you have to do a milk, 2 fruits and or vegetables, a grain bread component, and then a meat alternate. And then for snack, you only have to serve 2 of those 4 components here. Those are all that's required in order to make that a reimbursable meal. So again, a very simplified look at what's required here, but just wanted to show what components make up a meal for the summer food service program. All right, so moving on to reimbursement. So through the summer food service program, sponsors are reimbursed for every meal served, and these rates are adjusted annually, and it just actually came out in the last couple of weeks, the new rates for 2024. So for this upcoming summer, here are the rates. I'm not gonna go over them. One thing to flag is that depending on where you're located or what kind of site you have, the reimbursement will be different. So you can see here for rural and self-prep sites, the reimbursement is higher. And then for all other sites, which basically means, non-rural, vended meals, the reimbursement is a little bit lower for those sites. And this is for the 48 states in the US, and then Alaska, Hawaii, and then the territories do have a higher reimbursement. This slide would be a little crazy if I included all those rates, but that all is really available on USDA's website, and we can make sure that that gets included in the materials that go out afterwards. And just for a quick visual, I just wanted to show what it looks like to serve these meals and how this can add up. So providing a breakfast and lunch, some easy math here. So 50 children for 40 days, around 16,000 in reimbursement. 100 children for 40 days is around 32,000. And then if you have a bigger program, you can just see how economies of scale and growing it can really help. So 300 children for 40 days would be just shy of $100,000 in reimbursement. So just wanted to give that visual in case that's helpful for folks. All right, I have a couple more slides and then we'll turn it over to our speakers. So I definitely wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the new option that will be available for 2024. And by new, I mean permanent. Guidance is out. It's, we're moving forward with it. So basically, beginning in summer 2023, certain rural areas could start to use this option, the non-congregate in rural areas. So rather than having the typical congregate site, if you were in a rural area that did not have access to congregate sites, you were able to do this. USDA did release interim final rule in late December of this past year, so December 2023. They really codified a lot of what was already out there, but I do know that a lot of state agencies are thinking about how this is going to look for this summer. There weren't too many changes, so just briefly wanted to talk about, key facts. So the purpose of this option is to fill gaps in rural areas that do not have access to traditional congregate summer meal sites. So it's not meant to replace those sites. It's meant to complement them and fill the gaps that we know exist in rural areas. So state agencies, as part of their annual program planning, they do have to identify and target areas that do not have access to programs, and that will really help the work done on this option. So to be eligible, sites have to be located in a rural area as defined by USDA. And then there's 2 components for eligibility. The first is area eligibility. So like we talked about earlier, the site is in an area where more than 50% of the children are eligible for free or reduced price meals. And then another option is called conditional sites or conditional eligibility, which means that the children in the area have been identified as eligible for free or reduced price meals. So it's not meeting that area eligibility, but it's individually qualifying children to receive the meals. And then within this, a lot of the options that have been available during the pandemic are still there. So bulk, multi-day, home delivery, those are all available through this guidance and through this option, but state agencies are able to determine how that will look and what will be an option in your state. So I have the caution sign here. Please connect with your state agency to determine what options will be available in your state for summer 2024. Do not assume that every option and everything will be available, and that if you're in a rural area, you can operate. There are more pieces to it than that, but I did want to just let everyone know that this is rolling out for this upcoming summer, and it's going to be a really important component in rural areas. And then just really briefly, we talked about that rural area designation. On the next slide here is a new resource from USDA that shows, it's a map. Basically, you can go there, put your address in and see if you're located in a rural area. And that does include the new classifications that USDA have included for this option. So I'm hoping this QR code works, but if not, if you type or Google in rural designation map USDA, you'll be taken to this and you can see if you are in a rural area. And we'll also make sure that this is included afterwards in the slides. All right, so quickly, there are some opportunities on the programmatic side for increasing participation, whether you are new to the program or you are a seasoned veteran. Obviously, there have been a lot of changes to this program. The pandemic made it quite difficult to operate for many years. So now really is the time to come back together and see how we can make sure this program reaches more kids. So really quickly, engaging your governors and elected officials to really talk about the importance of this program and get their buy-in and support can be key. If you are a state agency or maybe a statewide partner, taking a look at your sponsors and what kind of support they need and what sites maybe have fallen off the last couple of years that could be brought in with some more support and support, I guess, is a really key strategy. And then also thinking about what your menus or meal offerings can look like. So that should say in parentheses, farm to summer. I think it might have gotten cut off, but we know that sites can be there, and if the kids do not like the meals, they will not come back. So taking a look at what your meals are, how you can make improvements, if you can survey or do taste tests, all those things can really make the difference to having kids come back to sites. And then just taking a look at your community and doing some mapping. USDA has some really great tools. Where are the underserved areas? Pull up the capacity builder, see where sites have been in the past, see where there may be gaps, and really taking some time to set goals for expansion can make all the difference. And then on the policy side, so communities are moving forward with summer EBT and non-congregate, and there is really a huge opportunity to make improvements to the existing programs and making sure that kids can have access to sites that have that programming and enrichment. So over the last couple years, there have been some key policy options that have really been held up as key opportunities to do so. And we know that child nutrition reauthorization is not happening like quite this minute, but it's always good to keep this in mind and be aware of these opportunities for advocacy. So some of the things that we've identified are streamlining summer and after school meals. So we know that many sponsors are running the same program basically for the same kids, but have to switch back and forth depending on what time of year it is. So streamlining those programs could really make it easier for them to operate. We also know that lowering the area eligibility threshold would be key. During the pandemic, that was lowered and actually removed altogether. We know that even reducing that from 50 to 40% would make it so that more like suburban and rural areas could participate where there isn't the same concentrated level of poverty. Right now, sites can only serve up to 2 meals for the most part, unless it's a camp. So being able to serve that third meal would be really beneficial. And then we know that transportation continues to be a barrier. So having funding that could address transportation challenges and support things like mobile meals could also be a game changer for connecting more kids to these programs. So all of these things are listed on our website under our action page on frac.org, and we'll make sure that this goes out after the webinar too. But I think I've talked enough. Let's go ahead and hear from our speakers. We're going to turn it over to Maribel, who again is with the Greater Valley YMCA. She's the Senior Director of Community Impact, and she's going to share a little bit more about her program and what they see in beautiful Allentown, Pennsylvania. So Maribel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. I will say, first of all, I am honored to be here. I think this is one of my favorite areas to share with you in regards to the impact that we see in our community. Like Clarissa said, I am Maribel with the Greater Valley YMCA. I'm also a food service delivery partner with our national YMCA office. So I have experiences really supporting the Ys in our nation, building capacity towards their food programs. One of the things that Clarissa had mentioned earlier is really that no program looks the same really anywhere, and our communities don't look the same. So I want us all to kind of go in here with that lens that what might work for you or what might work for me might be a little bit different. But understanding that when we're looking at building the capacity for our summer meals and feeding kids, there really are ways that you can build that sustainability of your programs. So at the Greater Valley YMCA, we are a sponsor of the year-round food programs. So that includes our traditional childcare settings, our outside school hours, as well as our at-risk after school. And in the summer, we are a sponsor of the summer food service program. So we offer meals in our locations at the Y, but additionally at local parks and playgrounds, pools, libraries, housing, churches. We really go where the community needs us. Last year, we served over 187,000 USDA meals and snacks, and we are a self-prep sponsor with 4 production facilities. So that's a little background of kind of our operations now. But looking at this from a fresh lens, which is what I was asked to do, I channeled back to what I wish I would have known when I started the program. And there is a lot. There's a lot of information that Clarissa shared, and there's a lot of information in regards to becoming a sponsor of the summer food program, as it is a federally funded program that is administered at the state level. So I just want to preface it that there are assistance through the state agencies that you can get if you're interested in becoming a sponsor, but you also have a network of other partners across the nation that have done this work. But I want to start off by saying it's very important that you set your goals. If you want to go in there feeding kids for the summer, really identify a clear goal for your organization and what you would ultimately like to do. When we got started, we knew that, our goal was to increase food access over the summer. Our school districts around our region had kids that were over 50% eligible for free or reduced lunch. So we knew that there was a gap. We also want to encourage you to become knowledgeable of what the community needs are and what the vulnerable populations are, and also who are the players currently at the table. Around the nation, we know that our school districts do a phenomenal job at feeding our kids during the school year, but some of them do not continue over the summer, and that could be an opportunity where your organization can step in to serve the community. Very important to also, when you're learning about the program for the summer food service, as well as setting your goals and working with your partners, that you really create a clear standard operating procedures. You want to ensure the sustainability of your programs, and you also want to make sure that you're adhering to the program regulations to maintain its integrity. Key thing that I would also say, and this is something that has resonated with me for years since I've been with the program, is remaining flexible. Your program, for what it might look like one year, might look a little differently the next year. You might just find ways that you can either improve your programs or change operations. Remain innovative and continue to think outside the box. So that's some of the things that we're looking at with capacity building. Sustainability, consider the summer food service program as a way to receive reimbursement for eligible meals. Clarissa explained that a little further, but I also want to add this. When we started our summer food service program, we did not start as a sponsor. We started as a site, and we worked with our local school district. We worked with partners around the table to be a site and offer the meals that are offered through the summer food service program. Once we got an understanding and a handle of the operations, we learned a little bit more about the regulations and the administrative responsibilities that are involved with the program. And that's when we began the conversations with our state agency to consider becoming a sponsor. So there are times, I think that when we're working within this space, we're hearing about the summer food service program, and that's a phenomenal way to ensure the sustainability, because you are getting reimbursement. But there's other ways also, and that could be working with another sponsor that can provide you the meals, and a sponsor can handle the administrative responsibilities. So you want to make sure that, again, you're reaching out to your partners, you're finding out who's doing what and how you can truly fit the need and the gap in your community. When you come to the table, meet with your local leaders, your county, your city officials, your faith-based leaders, your school districts, your parks and recs departments. Reach out to other nonprofits in your area also, local businesses, volunteers, and most importantly, your community. So one of the most important aspects of this program is that you're serving your community and you're ensuring that you are listening to what the community needs. Next slide. When we work together to accomplish all of our goals, which typically would include with this feeding our kids, but also providing a safe space. We're not just creating this opportunity for our kids and our partners to come together, but we're raising friends, right? We're friend raising. And that's so important for us. We all know within our capacity as nonprofit organizations or school districts, that our teams are the most important. And when our kids get together and they're building community, that's the most important aspect of our food programs. We want to ensure that through your program operations that you're continuing to be an advocate for your food program, and you're sharing your story. By sharing your story and the work that you're doing, you have so many opportunities to be able to fundraise, to be able to friend raise, right? Not all the times will your conversations turn into dollars or big checks, but often enough you could find those other community members that might be able to, donate either their time or goods and services that can help your program remain successful. The SFSP program reimburses you for your operating and your administrative expenses, but there are some times that there are other expenses that you might incur that are not covered. So continuing your fundraising opportunities is critical to the sustainability of your program. And again, advocating for your program is very important. I want to highlight also the importance when we're looking at that advocacy piece, when we're looking at fundraising and sharing our story. I want to also mention that tracking your impact is very important. So using a system to track either the number of meals that you're serving, the number of kids that you're serving, collecting your testimonials or quotes from your families is something that you should continuously work on. This sometimes is challenging to the folks that are on the ground working the program, but it's key and it's vital to be able to continue to support the efforts of your food program. So there are some organizations and there are some digital platforms that are available, some at a cost, some that might be free. Some partners use pen and paper. Others can use a spreadsheet. So whatever works for you and your organization, I encourage you to ensure that you are always keeping track of that impact that you're making. Keep that readily available so that when you're telling your story, you have that information and that data to back up the impact of your community. Lastly, ask questions. I think one of the biggest things that we do when we start off the program is being overwhelmed with so many regulations and so many different ways that we can operate or we can model the program. But sit with someone, either your state agency, someone at FRAC, someone at the Y, or other local leaders, and just start having the conversations on how to administer this program, how to remain sustainable, what ideas somebody might have to support your work. Because there are a lot of things that you might not know about the program, but others have certainly gone through it. Through those questions, tracking your impact, fundraising and friend raising, you will create a very positive community feel for not just your kids, your families, your partners, and your donors as well. So picture here, I just want to highlight was a big check presentation that we saw just this past year to support our food program. To the right, we have some of our local state elected officials come to visit our community gardens, be part of the work that we're doing so that they can witness firsthand the impact. And then we have some kids and some staff that are, again, building relationships and communities. Any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I turn it over to Clarissa.
Amazing, thank you. 2 points that I just wanted to touch on a bit is the friend raising, amazing. And also just the fact that, yes, coming into this program, if you are completely new to this, you do not need to be a sponsor right away. In fact, a lot of folks do start as a site under someone else's sponsorship, just to become familiar with the program and learn the ropes before taking on that administration. So that is a really key point that I wanted to, just agree with. So thank you so much. We're gonna go ahead and move on to Valerie. Valerie is with the Boys and Girls Clubs in Texas, and she's going to talk a little bit more about their work.
Thanks, Clarissa. Hi, everybody. Yes, so my name is Valerie Burciaga, and I am the Nutrition Grant Manager for Boys and Girls Clubs in Texas, which is our Texas Alliance, an affiliate of Boys and Girls Clubs of America through government relations. So like Maribel said, every program is different. And so we will talk about various differences between our program, and no program is cookie cutter. So Maribel talked about how their program is a self-prep program, and I'm going to talk to you about how our program utilizes a national partner for food production and delivery services. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So a little bit about us, similar to the WISE program, we do provide a food program year round. We focus on can we go back one slide, please? Thank you. The Child and Adult Care Food Program, CACFP. So most of our Boys and Girls Clubs are affiliated partners of our organization, in which doesn't require any additional program or additional paperwork to be a part of the food program other than a general site application. And in a state like Texas, we have a large pool of sites that are available. However, our goal is just to fill in the gap of supplementing some support for our local Boys and Girls Clubs, as many of them are autonomous to one another. Some of them do self-prep individually at their local level. Our goal was to focus on supporting communities that were in need, especially our rural communities, which is what led to the development of our state agency taking on and becoming a state-approved sponsor during the food program out of school time meal service. So we do year-round through CACFP as well as SFSP for the summer food service time. Our program offers hot meals, fresh cold meals, and shelf-stable meals. It just depends on the location of our site and the capacity of the equipment that are at our individual locations as to what type of meals that we offer during our summer food service program. In addition to being a sponsor at the state level, we sponsor both affiliated and non-affiliated sites. So as Clarissa mentioned, if you are looking to become just a site to get started and you're looking for a sponsor in Texas, we would be a organization that would sponsor you and help with the administrative management as well as the implementation process of it. And that way your site as a beginning or a start off site would only have to focus on the actual food distribution and food roster management at your local level. And then of course, because we're a state agency, we also advocate for youth development programs and nutrition when it comes to policy changes at the state level. Next slide. So a little bit about the state of Texas. We are one of the largest states, as you all know, with that. So we cover a lot of ground when it comes to serving our meals in the state of Texas. During the summertime, we had 29 total sites, 11 of which were rural and 18 urban. When we deliver our food across the state of Texas, we have sites as far down in the valley as San Benito, Texas, and all the way up in the north end of the Texas with the DFW area. We cover over 2,000 miles in one-way meal deliveries from any one of our three warehouses from our food vendor partner. So one of the things that we focused on was partnering with an agency that could help us manage that level of distribution across a state like Texas. And in Texas, 1 in 4 youth have food insecurity, and that doubles in the summertime when our kids are out of school. Usually their last meal of the day is in an after-school program, and then they go to their school for breakfast. So the gaps during summertime are even more important that we focus to try to provide those meals. Can we go to the next slide, please? So some of our challenges and opportunities, that was one of the fresh takes we wanted to discuss today. As we know, during a post-COVID world, we are all struggling with some labor and employment shortages across the country. That includes at our school districts, at our nonprofits, even in our food vendor production companies. So everyone is feeling the challenges of being short-staffed, and trying to do more with less is one of our challenges, as well as an opportunity in the summertime. It gives us a chance to really try to streamline the program itself and try to make things easier for our frontline staff who are implementing the food service program at a local level. One of our challenges is, especially in a state like Texas, is trying to offer multilingual information and training for staff. I will say USDA and our state agency, the Texas Department of Agriculture, do a phenomenal job in providing collateral for parents and families about the program, about the opportunities that the program offers, but we are still working to develop some program specific guidance when it comes to training the staff in multiple languages. I happen to be a bilingual speaker, so I'm able to help with our local staff trainings, but not everybody has that benefit. But we do work closely with our state agency to try to get some of those things developed, and that is what has been in the works with our state agency. As Clarissa mentioned, we are advocating for allowing a third meal during the summertime when our organization is offering extended hours. We are still limited to the restrictions of the SFSP program, in which we can only serve 2 meals per day at any given site. And that really limits the amount of opportunities that the kids have to reach their full potential when it comes to the hunger insecurity, because they're sometimes at a local Boys and Girls Club or any summer program as early as 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're there until parents are out of work at 5 or 6 in the evening, sometimes later. So during the school time, it really puts a more, during the out of school time, it really constrains us when we're only able to offer 2 meals. So that is one of the things that we are still advocating for with the Summer Food Service Act that has been at the federal level for some time now. And then in that same paragraph, we're also working to reduce the area eligibility guidelines. We've talked about how 50% of the threshold must be on free and reduced lunch within that community. I will say in the state of Texas, we've been grateful that we have a summer waiver that reduces the area eligibility a little bit, sometimes to about 45, sometimes even 43%, which has extremely been beneficial in providing those meals in those communities that are right on the cusp or the threshold of that poverty line that will allow us to serve an extra few hundred kids that would not have been eligible prior to receive a summer food meal. Then Clarissa still mentioned that we are advocating for transportation grants in the state of Texas. Like I mentioned, we cover over 2,000 miles in our deliveries per day, one way per day. So when we are asking for transportation funds, it's really to help focus on our rural communities, those communities that have to travel over 15 miles to their local food bank or to their nearest food pantry, who also have limited transportation or might not have public transportation in their community. That is where we're trying to focus our efforts in providing transportation grants, as well as the upcoming rural non-congregate program. And I can skip to that part. The rural non-congregate, while it has been approved by USDA, and so we're excited for that, the state of Texas is still working out the details of the implementation. So if it's possible, where we can go back to some of the COVID operations that were allowed with those waivers, where we were able to serve grab and go meals or parent pickup meals or home delivery meals, then we would be able to serve even more kids and then kind of take on some of the administrative costs of reducing those transportation challenges that we're facing already with our rural communities. And then, of course, kids are kids and every kid likes different types of meals. So trying to find meals and snacks that they will all eat across the state of Texas has been sometimes of a challenge because what sometimes kids like in the Dallas area might not be what they like in the San Antonio area. And it's all personal preference, but I will say working with a food vendor partner like we do focus on trying to provide name brand and recognizable items so that the kids are more enticed to want to eat their meals, especially when it comes to their fresh fruits and vegetables. Next slide. So some of our best practices is we have been operating our summer food service program now for the last 4 years. And then, so we have been able to offer a dependable and consistent program for our current sites that have renewed from year to year, as well as being able to recruit new sites. With the recruitment of new sites, that comes a lot from word of mouth, whether it's from our current sites who have been participating, whether it is from parents or local church leaders who are within the same communities in which a Boys and Girls Club is located. They're able to offer the information that they would need in order to become a summer feeding site. And then again, as a sponsor, we would take on a majority of the administration responsibilities that self-vended sites or self-corp sites are more responsible for. We have been partnered with PepsiCo Food for Good, which is also a nonprofit agency. And when it comes to the food production of our meals, they have helped us truly streamline our food program in that we're able to offer unitized meals. They also assist with recruiting as they're delivering nationwide. They are also helping and talking to local community leaders and helping us identify other agencies and sites that might be in need of a food sponsor, again, which is what we are lucky enough to be able to be a sponsor of both affiliate and non-affiliated sites. And it's one of the stepping stones to getting started within SFSP. We currently have 3 production warehouses in Austin, Houston, and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And all of those meals are produced at those 3 warehouses and delivered across the state of Texas. We have been able to utilize Google Drives and other electronic versions of streamlining the paperwork for our local sites. We know that our goal is to help our local staff who are working day to day with the kids in a short amount of time to just be able to come in, serve their already unitized meal, put it on their tracking roster, and then turn that in to us, and we take care of the rest. So we provide all of the production records with our vended partner. We provide all of their quantity records, their meal orders, their menus. So that way it's as easy as possible for our staff at the ground level who are working directly one-on-one with the kids. And then we continuously seek out supplemental funding. As we all know, the reimbursement is not always enough to cover everything. So we do partner with other nonprofits and other agencies, as well as individual donors and fundraisers. But our 2 top grant recipients that we've been a recipient of have been with the No Kid Hungry Foundation and of course our partner with FRAC. And so those have been 2 of our top resources when it comes to helping our local communities find equipment, find supplemental funding for staffing, whatever the case may be. They have really been 2 great organizations that we encourage everyone to continue communication with both of them. And next slide. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them in the chat or in the Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you, Valerie. I feel like I have so many things to follow up on, but I want to make sure we have enough time for Beth to get through her slides. So again, yes, if you do have any questions for Valerie, put those in the Q&A in the chat, and I will go ahead and turn it over to our last speaker, Beth from Caroline County.
Good afternoon. I'm Beth Brewster. I'm very humbled to be here, Clarissa. Thank you for inviting me. Valerie and Maribel, you guys have wonderful programs, and I really admire your commitment to our youth. So I am a school nutrition operator. So I come from being a sponsor and vending. So this is our wonderful logo we had a couple years ago. So we come from a holistic approach that we can feed our kids during the school year in our four walls, but we really like to go out into community because we know that the children need to have nutrition for their great brain matter to grow. So we are very involved with our community, with our seniors, with our family units as well. Slide, please. It's just so our mission is to create healthy, economically stable families. We do this through food equity, job training, youth prevention, economic development, and education. We work very closely with a number of organizations, our Parks and Recreation, our YMCA, our libraries, and other organizations to get to our families. Next, please. So my focus today is on distribution, and we are a all rural community, our district. So we're county-wide. We have about 36,000 residents in Caroline County. 10% of our families are in the poverty. One in five of our students are food insecure. We just started community eligibility provision this year. That means that all of our students can eat breakfast and lunch free, which has been amazing. So COVID taught us a lot, and this has been a big impact. We have 9 schools, again, very rural. So for summer meal delivery, we really had to pivot since the decision didn't come out until a little bit later. But we had open sites where we have camps in all of our elementary schools. We have drop-off sites at our libraries, our churches, recreation and parks, and some other community buildings. So we did have one closed site this year. We worked with the Girl Scout camp to provide their meals. At the end of the school year, we send out a Google form for our parents to fill out for applications for door-to-door delivery. Since we are so rural, some of our houses are 2, 3, 4, 5 miles apart, and these children do not have access to a meal distribution site. So we actually had 31 deliveries that we did for this year, and we've vetted those to make sure that they were in an area that they didn't have a meal site close to them. And we went mobile, and as you can see, we have this mobile unit. If you go to the next slide, please. So I'm sorry, so Maryland Department of Transportation, we got the bus donated. It's a 14 passenger, so it's on a van chassis. So you do not have to have CDL license to drive the bus. So we went ahead and retrofit it. And actually I probably did my slides a little bit wrong. So it is also goes out into the community. It's a farmer's market as well. And I believe I have pictures coming up. But we did for meals, we did hot meals that the kids, as you can see, my ladies are putting together meals that are frozen, and they can use them to heat with a microwave or in an oven. During the pandemic, we put out a survey of who needed an instrument to be able, a vessel to be able to heat, and we actually issued out 3 microwaves to our family members. So we did breakfast and lunch service, number of meals served. If we were going to the site every day, we did 1 day of meal. If we were going to the site 2 days, like just 2 days a week, we would do 3 days of meals in the packages. We did 7 weeks of meal service. So as soon as school let out, we started the service, and then we went until 3 days before the school started. So we did 36,000 meals, and then 11,000 right off the mobile bus. Next, please. So these are just pictures of our meals that we had for the kids at the summer camps, and this is what our lines actually look like during the school year. Our fresh fruits and veggie bars to really promote healthy eating with our kids. We do fruit infused water for them so that they go home asking for fruit infused spa water, as they call it, instead of soda. Next picture, please. We also do a central backpack program, and this is funded through 2 organizations here in Caroline County. So this is not vetted through the USDA. So we send out during the school year 800 backpacks a week in school system. We have volunteers that come to the central program to put them together. We have volunteers delivered to the schools, and then we have coaches at each of the schools that issue them out. During the summer, we do about 375 of these backpacks, and they're for two days of meals. Next, please. So the mobile market, I think I might have missed pictures. So we started this because of food desert areas. How do we get to our neighborhoods that don't have access to fresh fruit and vegetable? So we took this bus and we retrofitted it. State of Maryland has senior citizen farm vouchers that they can use at farmers markets, but we don't have a farmers market. So we actually partnered with a local farmer to be able to get the boxes and take them to the senior centers for them. We see as a local economic development, we use a lot of value added products on this. It was definitely a way to connect with our community. We're in the neighborhoods, we're in the apartment complexes, we're in the trailer parks, we're at the parks. And it really truly has helped to build food equity and security for our region. We partner with Chop Tank Health, which does wellness in all of our schools, but they are our community wellness organization. And they actually got a grant through No Kid Hungry for farm scripts. So the kids could come on the bus with vouchers and to be able to get fresh fruit and produce. And we also have a lot of our businesses that use it for employee wellness incentive. Next, please. So here's pictures of the bus. There they are. So this is what it looks like inside. So people can come in and shop. We have SNAP application pending to be able to take SNAP from our community. But with the farm scripts, this is what we set up so the kids could come and shop for the local veggies. We work closely with our local farmers to provide these delicious fruit and vegetables. Next, please. And that's me. I know I probably have 1,000 more things to tell you, but this little bus has had a tremendous impact on our community.
Amazing. Thank you,
I'll turn it
Beth.
to
And yeah,
you.
just so exciting to see how that has evolved and you've been able to adapt to the non-congregate option and still maintain those other sites as well. So I know we are nearing the end of time and I want to make sure that we are respectful of everyone's time. We're definitely all available after today's webinar. So if you do have any questions that we didn't get to, I spent some time answering those that came in through the Q&A feature. So I highly recommend if anyone else would like to check those out and see what the answers are, feel free to do that. We will be sending around a recording. But one thing that I did want to just mention, so we had a couple questions about summer EBT, which was not the focus of today's webinar, but at FRAC, it's one of our priorities, and we definitely will be having more webinars on that. But just in a nutshell, in case people are not familiar with that program. So it became an option. It was a pilot program for many years, starting in 2010 in some states. During the pandemic, it was a nationwide option. And then with that same legislation that created non-congregate, it also created summer EBT, a permanent program moving forward, which is really exciting. So for this upcoming summer 2024, states had to opt in and they have to cover 50% of the administrative cost of it. So at this point, for this upcoming summer, we have 35 states, a handful of all the territories, and 5 tribal nations will be operating summer EBT. And that means that eligible children will be receiving $120 on a card that they can use at grocery stores for groceries. So it's very exciting. States still need to make sure that they get this to the finish line and secure that administrative funding, but we are thrilled to see that 35 states and the territories and tribal nations will be participating. And I know someone had a specific question about competition or just concerns about summer meals participation dropping off because of summer EBT. And just from our perspective, what we've seen with the data, that has not been the case over the pandemic. I think it is realistic to say that in some areas, especially like rural or, certain areas, they may find it easier to use summer EBT over summer meals, but we definitely see these as two complementary programs that will work together and make sure to help fill the summer nutrition gap. Because if you really think about it, summer EBT families are getting $40 per month, which is about $1.33 a day, which really does not cover the full cost of a child's needs. And on the other hand, summer food is providing, meals at two meals per day, which is also not as many meals as kids would be getting through school breakfast and lunch and after school suppers and snacks. So again, we really see these two programs being a complement to each other. And we have not heard that there's concerns around competition or barriers or seeing a drop off in summer meals participation. So just wanted to acknowledge that. I do see some questions here about like menu ideas and suggestions, so we will make sure to send that out in the follow-up. But I just wanted to quickly thank Beth, Valerie, and Maribel for joining us today. I know there is a lot here, a lot to cover, and we could have spent hours talking about it, but I think this is a really great start to the summer meal season, and we're looking forward to hosting future webinars and seeing you all back again. So we'll go ahead and close out today's event. On the next slide, I think, are a few resources from FRAC, but if you go on our website, you will find everything you need, and I'll put my email address in the chat as well. So if you'd like to reach out to me afterwards, please feel free to do that. I love talking about summer meals and would be happy to connect. So thank you all so much, and we will talk soon.